Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where once again we're reminded of Hollywood's magic number, and that's PG-13. Yes, thanks to this family-friendly rating and a couple other factors that we're going to discuss, Now You See Me 3 was the surprise winner of the weekend, and a much-needed win for the beleaguered Lionsgate. I mean, 21.3 million is not great, and it's the lowest debut of the franchise yet, but a win's a win, especially when it seems like a magic trick. Yes, this threequel wasn't on the industry or the media's radar, and it has the lowest critic score of the bunch, yet here it is, at number 1. Did any of you choose to see Now You See Me 3 this weekend? And if so, what drove your decision? I'll be interested to see if it matches with some of the things that we're going to go over. Now, it is pretty shocking, speaking of a misdirect, everybody look over here at Glen Powell's career imploding. Because yes, The Running Man debuted at a distant second. Glen Powell even hosted Saturday Night Live last night. You know, I'll be curious, what are your thoughts on Glen Powell? I have a couple, which I'm going to share, but I want to say up front, I think that he has the same problem that Sydney Sweeney does, and they both rose together with that rom-com Anyone But You. But I think neither one of them seems to realize which audience is interested in them. I think both actors have been propelled to date by conservative and moderate audiences. Like they should both be calling up Taylor Sheridan. You know what I'm saying? The trades, the industry streets, are saying that when the reviews dropped for The Running Man on Tuesday and the audience found out that the film was very message heavy, audience ticket sales slowed down significantly. Did you choose not to see The Running Man this weekend? And if not, why not? I'll be interested to see if that matches some of the things we're going to discuss as well. By the way, I hope all these movies are grabbing as much cash as they can, because a tornado is about to hit the entertainment business. How big is Wicked? I was in Target this morning and they were selling Glinda Swiffers. Oh my God. I was tempted to buy one, but I was like, I don't need a pink Swiffer. But I was tempted. How much a Wicked for Good merch have you purchased? All right, so yes, it's Wicked for Good week with early screenings starting tomorrow. I've already seen the film. The review embargo lifts on Tuesday, which means we'll be getting a Rotten Tomatoes score. Then the box office, which means we covered the Thursday night box office, etc. I'll be going over all this. I've got videos planned. I've got live streams planned. I've blocked out the whole freaking week. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the party. And even if you're not into Wicked, it'll be interesting to see how this goes down. The great thing about Wicked for Good is no competition. Zootopia 2, maybe a little, but Ella McKay, the housemaid, Wicked for Good is going to steamroll those films. As Avatar, well, that should be the Oppenheimer to Wicked for Good's Barbie. Hopefully. And at the end of this video, we're going to talk a little bit about Wicked for Good's tracking. But speaking of scheduling movies, whose dumb idea was it to put Predator, Badlands, and The Running Man back to back? They hurt each other. Predator Badlands was posting great numbers all week long, but then bam, The Running Man hits theaters, taking away Predator's premium screens. And Predator, by the way, Now You See Me 3 didn't even need premium screens. It had a handful of Dolby showings, and that's it. Nobody cared, which is also interesting. But Predator fell more in its second weekend than Alien Romulus did. And Alien Romulus fell a decent amount. Alien Romulus' only competition, though, in its second weekend was Deadpool and Wolverine, which at that point had already been out for over a month. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine and Alien Romulus were a month apart because they're both Disney movies, and Disney scheduled them appropriately. Now Predator Badlands has fallen 68% in its second weekend, and it's going to be left playing in a closet next weekend because Wicked for Good is not only going to take up all the premium screens, yoink, but any decent sized screen at all is going to go for Wicked for Good at the multiplexes. But when it comes to Predator Badlands, not all hope is lost. I do find it amusing that it's the exact same people who were fighting me for a positive spin on Alien Romulus's box office just last year are the same people who are trying to use pretty similar numbers to put Predator Badlands in a negative spin with their box office. That's crazy. Like, what is the difference between the two movies for some of you? I mean, they both had strong female characters. It's interesting to me why there's such a disparity to a degree. A lot of people are rallying behind Predator Badlands, to be fair. I mean, and also Alien Romulus was 61% to 68, but 61's not great. We'll see, Predator Badlands, we'll see how it does, because it's still holding on to all its incredible records from last weekend. Biggest opening for the franchise, highest critic score, highest audience scores, right? And now it can add to that list the highest grossing non-crossover film domestically to date. And worldwide, it's already the third highest grossing film of the franchise, including the crossovers. So we'll see. And I think based on its stellar audience scores, really good audience scores, I think it's going to do big business down the line on digital and streaming. It could make a ton of money. It could make the bulk of its money on digital. So I still feel really good about the Disney Fox franchises, and I hope you'll check out my video if you haven't already about what might be next for Alien, Apes, and Predator. Oh my. But The Running Man, it did hurt Predator Badlands and itself. Poor Josh Goldstein, certainly not the debut he was hoping for after moving from head of publicity for Warner Brothers to Paramount. But he did come into the marketing strategy for this film very late. The trades are saying he reworked the trailers, but I felt the first trailer for this film was the best. And Goldstein didn't make this movie. There's only so much he can do. As I said in my review, The Running Man represents everything that's wrong with modern Hollywood filmmaking, particularly that it's too message heavy. There are other issues which we're going to discuss. But audiences are making it clear that they want the 3 E's: an event, escapism, and entertainment, right? Which is why they chose the magic show. By the way, Wicked for Good, it has the event locked down, but it's very message heavy. I think it's going to open huge. But I do wonder what being so message heavy will mean for its long-term box office prospects. Without spoilers, what do you think, fans of the Broadway musical who know what's coming? Bring tissues with you to see this movie. I think you might need a couple of packets, in fact. Speaking of the problems of modern filmmaking, Hollywood continues to think they can take properties that are historically, for male audiences and somehow get female audiences interested. They can't! It's proven to be almost impossible. And this is, as I said, yet another example. And this time, Hollywood thought that by casting Glen Powell, they could get the ladies to show up. Glen Powell even joked about that last night in his monologue on Saturday Night Live, saying, you might not know who I am, but your mother sure does. But people's mothers aren't going to go see The Running Man, Glenn. Maybe you should be picking a script that would interest them. So Now You See Me was 54% women, yet The Running Man, just 36%. Glen Powell ended up also learning the same lesson that a lot of actresses learn, and that's that showing a lot of skin doesn't always sell tickets, especially if it's just for a brief scene, and that brief scene ends up on social media. Like that. For Glen Powell and The Running Man, is one of you sent it to me. It was up on, because I talked about it a lot. It was one of the main reasons I think to go see the film, because it's not a very good movie. But it ended up on social media right as the film hit in theaters in North America in the afternoon. It was up immediately. The Running Man isn't a film that's going to bring in a lot of women, no matter what you do. A lesson that a number of franchises are apparently having to learn the hard way. Particularly, we've seen it with comic book movies, right? Would a more male-friendly lead have maybe gotten some of you to see this Running Man remake? What actor could they have cast in The Running Man? I don't know if it would have helped with Edgar Wright directing. I think Edgar Wright really hurt this movie a lot. But what actor would maybe have made you say, maybe I will go see The Running Man? Running Man also skewed older, thanks to the 1987 film. Those are the only people who really knew the IP. And also whiter. And on that note, I want to talk about Now You See Me 3's ace up its sleeve that isn't getting really any attention. And that's the new cast members, Ariana Greenblatt, Justice Smith, and Dominic Sessa. Where do you know him from? He was in The Holdovers. Isn't that interesting? The trades didn't even mention them when discussing this weekend, instead focusing on the OG cast. But I think it's these three that change the game. So I'll show you how they did this magic trick. As I said, the trades are distracted by the implosion of Glen Powell. He thought he was the new Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise even seems to think it. But I think it's being proven that he's the new Ryan Gosling. I've said this a couple of times now. I've been thinking it for a while. For instance, when I saw his promo, it was very good for Saturday Night Live, although it didn't get a lot of views. But when he did a take on that Christopher Walken music video, I thought it was great, but as soon as it was done, I was like, he's the new Ryan Gosling. And Ryan Gosling should be nervous because they're close enough in age that can they really coexist in Hollywood, particularly when it seems neither one of them can sell movie tickets. Should our movie die by Ryan Gosling or Glen Powell? We'll see. Hail Mary looks pretty strong. It'll be interesting to compare. It's very similar to Matt Damon's The Martian, and we'll get a real feel for star power between the two guys. Because Matt Damon, when he's in the right project, it's a famous Paul Newman quote. When you put an actor in the right project, they're priceless. So we'll see how Hail Mary does. But the Fall Guy sure tanked. Woo! All right. So anyway. We're talking about Now You See Me 3, and you have to look not just at the impressive diversity demos for the film, but the movie skewed younger as well. Particularly impressive, considering there hasn't been a Now You See Me movie for 9 years. Again, how'd they do it? Well, Netflix has been playing the former films for a while now where they've done very good numbers. Oh, that Netflix. And you're going to see that another studio is using Netflix to do the same thing when we get to their chart later on in this video. But that's a way to, get people interested. Stick your movies up on Netflix, which is the Coca-Cola of streaming. And Now You See Me 3 leaned real heavily into TikTok with not only influencer partnerships, but Jesse Eisenberg himself. I also think he got a lot of traction out of donating that kidney. I saw the headline, but he did a magic trick at Hudson Yards in New York City, which of course everyone filmed and posted online. Lionsgate says that with all these stunts for social media, they ended up getting over 60 million impressions. Now, Glen Powell wasn't the only falling star at the box office this weekend, because look at Osgood Perkins fall, just sink lower and lower. Not only did Keeper open with just 2.5 million, which still was good enough for number 6. The box office is so sick. But yikes, these scores from critic to audience. And by the way, a D+ cinema score, even for a horror film, is awful. Truly awful. But I always tell you, book your next film before the latest one comes out, just in case. And sure enough, Osgood Perkins is already making his next movie called The Young People, which, good for him. He has his business hat on. He's cast The Summer I Turned Pretty's Lola Tung and Nico Parker from The Last of Us and How to Train Your Dragon as his leads. Also, Johnny Knoxville and Nicole Kidman. Can he pull himself out of his nosedive? Maybe. Will you give Osgood Perkins another chance, especially with that cast? As for the rest of the top 10, speaking of up-and-coming young actors, Mason Thames continues to do nicely. Not great, but nicely with both of his films that are currently in theaters. And I suspect they'll do very well on digital and streaming. So he is in very good shape. Some people are trying to say, is he the new Jim Carrey? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's not bringing in that kind of cash, but he's certainly on his way up. While Nuremberg and Sarah's Oil had, okay holds in their second weekends, but they didn't make a lot to begin with. But I think that these holds show that they too could make some real money on digital and streaming. By the way, look who's number 11, Wicked, just outside the top 10 as fans are getting ready for part 2. Over on streaming, this time for mid-October with Nielsen's charts, always a month behind. Whatever. They're still, I think, the most reliable to really get a feel for the landscape. So, and this is how long it takes them, I guess. So, Monster Season 3, still number 1. So, they're definitely going to keep making Monster. And they are. But even with everyone saying this one stinks, you can see how well it did. But look at Netflix glow up another old show. This time, the pre-pandemic BBC show Poldark. There hasn't been a new season of that show since 2019. No wonder they added Aidan Turner to The Diplomat Season 3. Good synergy, Netflix. Way to think ahead. They were like, we're getting Poldark. We have The Diplomat. let's stick this guy on The Diplomat. And it's doing pretty well on this chart as well, as you can see. It wasn't so hot on the Netflix chart, but those are global. But as you can see, domestically, it's a very hot show. Netflix has every single spot on this chart except for number 10, which is an acquired show over on Hulu. By the way, speaking of Netflix, we got to give a shout out to Boots, hitting the overall chart with its first full week on Netflix, no matter what the Pentagon says. Netflix is dominating the originals chart too, with only Taylor Sheridan's Tulsa King on Paramount Plus and Only Murders on the Building on Hulu able to break through. Gen V, by the way, you might be wondering, where's Gen V? Was it done by now? No, it wasn't. It, in fact, was in its second to last episode. That's not great that it's not able to chart so far, so deep into its season 2, especially when it did at the beginning. You know, I wonder with some of these shows like Gen V, we'll see how Welcome to Derry does in the long run with its viewership. On tonight's breakdown, we're going to talk about Welcome to Derry viewership a little bit, but it's too early for it to hit Nielsen. I think it hits Nielsen in the next week or two. But some of these shows, there was a lot of excitement for them, but once people saw them, they didn't come back. That's maybe one of the downsides of a weekly versus a binge drop. But it's interesting. Are there any shows that you were excited about, but once you saw them, you were like, I'm out? And would you be more forgiving if they were a binge? Is it the weekly that makes you go, I'm just not coming back to this? Speaking of a binge, we'll see if a binge bump benefits Gen V next week with its season 2 finale. But no wonder Eric Kripke's been sweating, saying, please watch Gen V season 2 or you're not going to get a season 3. It's tough out there for genre content, no doubt, while Netflix's mega hits, homegrown mega hits, continue to thrive. Look at Wednesday and Stranger Things, both on this list, despite not currently putting out any new episodes. Stranger Things 5 could be a real hiccup this holiday season for other movies and shows, as it's dropping in 3 parts on each of the major holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. But in New Year's, in theaters, I'm excited to see what kind of numbers it posts. Then with movies, what do you know? Netflix dominates here as well. And this used to be the one Nielsen chart that Disney Plus could rely on. Did you notice? There wasn't a single Disney Plus anywhere on this week's charts. Not on overall, not on original, not on movies. What about Bluey, right? What about Bluey's always there? Well, it turns out this week, even Bluey it's on the acquired chart, but at 719, that wasn't enough to make the overall. What kind of shows do you think Disney Plus could get I guess Hulu shows are technically available on Disney Plus, but what do you think Disney Plus needs to do to get back on these charts, man? On Netflix's charts for just last week, they're faster because it's their own data. But let's talk Frankenstein. It's a solid number 1, but this is just the first 3 days. Let's see how it does when it gets to its first full week on Netflix. And before, I didn't love Frankenstein, but I know a lot of you just love it so much. But I'm being honest here, right? Because for comparison, Damsel, the Millie Bobby Brown movie, did 35.3 million views in its first 3 days, while Leave the World Behind did 41.7 and Carry On a full 42. So those are stronger. This isn't bad though. And I have to say I did see it briefly trending on Twitter when it dropped, just like Saltburn did. So it seems that Jacob Elordi might be the real star. Sorry, Glen Powell. I'm on the Jacob Elordi train. I'm thinking of voting for him to try and nominate him for Best Supporting Actor for Frankenstein. He's very good. I think he saves the movie. K-pop Demon Hunters is still posting above 10 million views per week in week 21. While House of Dynamite is also posting solid numbers. These aren't huge hits, but these movies aren't embarrassing themselves either. House of Dynamite and Frankenstein. Ballad of a Small Player is sure embarrassing itself, though. In its first full week on the chart, it's fallen down a lot. And there's a woman in the Woman in Cabin 10, which I think is a solid hit. Again, it's not huge, but I think they're going to, as I said before, continue to work with Keira Knightley. I'd certainly want to make another movie with her if I were Netflix. And if I were Keira Knightley, I'd want to make another movie with Netflix. Well, there it is. Universal is using Netflix to get audiences ready for Shrek 5. Those Shrek movies are good. My favorite is 2. It's so good. All right, but maybe I should check out the other ones. I don't know. Some of them were pretty bad. All right, as for shows, The Witcher, it might be number 1, but that's only because nobody wants this season 2. fell in its third week because The Witcher is posted the exact same number that it did last week. Last week, I was like, whew, these numbers stink. But many of you pointed out they already filmed season 5. They did it back to back. And thank goodness everybody on that show took their money and ran, because otherwise I don't think they would have gotten another season, because the show is so expensive, because nobody wants this as cheap. And even with its weak numbers, it did get renewed. But whew, even weaker are in their first weeks. Death by Lightning. I only watched the first episode of that. I didn't love it, despite the cast, which is a real shame. Squid Game: The Challenge. It looks like Mr. Beast has taken over that reality show area. And then also, I'm sad to say Leanne Morgan's stand-up show didn't do very well. But it was okay. I think her sitcom is funnier. And that also got renewed. If you haven't watched Leanne Morgan's sitcom, you are missing out. That's a great sitcom. It's just called Leanne. But, these things are all very weak. But there's Stranger Things Season 1 still in here as fans continue to get ready for Season 5, the final season, which is right around the corner. Then on digital, with Apple's charts, One Battle After Another came out a little early. It was supposed to maybe come out this week on digital, but Warner Brothers decided to get it out there, which I think was very smart. One Battle After Another is right now, I think, the very strong awards frontrunner in multiple categories, and I don't see any other movie being able to stop it. Maybe Marty Supreme, but I don't think in the Best Picture category. I think at this point, it's almost a lock. Possibly for director as well. We'll see. All right, then Roofman is also doing very well, and I think it's interesting that they changed the visual for that film. That's also from Paramount. Is that Josh Goldstein's work? We'll see. Actually, we'll never know unless they decide to tell us. But interesting. Let's pay attention to Paramount's marketing. Can Goldstein do as well as he did at Warner Brothers? All right, Good Fortune continues to do well. I'm very happy because I like the message of that movie. As does Black Phone 2. While F1 and Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, they're still in the top 10 with no signs of slowing down. That's incredible. As I said, they've been in the top 10 for months. Why is the Maze Runner collection doing so well? Well, it's just $5 for all 3 movies, and that's a pretty amazing price. Those movies were okay. I can't imagine anyone going back and watching them, to be honest with you. But for $5, did anyone buy it? What'd you think? Then look, fans are getting ready for Wicked in theaters and on digital. So, it's here. Wicked for good. What are your predictions for the opening weekend box office? A little perspective so you can make an educated prediction. So the first movie opened with 112.5, but Fandango is saying that this sequel is its biggest PG pre-seller of all time, and it has the highest pre-sales for 2025, period. It's better pre-sales than any movie coming out this year. And so far, the biggest opening of the year, the number to beat, is Minecraft at 162.7. And what do you know? Barbie opened at 162. We'll see. That'd be interesting. That looks like a pretty good number for Wicked for Good. Do you have your Wicked for Good tickets? And how many times are you planning to see it opening weekend? Only 2 other movies dare to open opposite Wicked for Good. That's Sisu 2 and Awards Play Rental Family. That's pretty solid counter programming, but it's all about Wicked this weekend. And of course, the current movies are going to try and make a little money, right? They're like, did you get sold out of Wicked for Good? Come see our movie. We'll see. Although Wicked for Good, as I said, is going to take up not just all the premium screens, but any decent sized screen at the multiplex. So it will be like watching these other movies at home. They're going to be on such tiny little screens. They got to build more premium theaters. Although when a movie like Wicked for Good comes along, if you had 2 Dolbys and 2 IMAXs, Wicked for Good would just be playing on all 4 of them. That's interesting. What a problem. Well, I mean, it's a good problem for Wicked. How would you fix I mean, at least maybe then it would save some of the regular big screens if Wicked for Good was on so many premiums, right? Maybe that would do it. All right, there don't seem to be any big digital releases this week. Again, One Battle After Another moved up, and maybe sometimes there's a surprise at the last minute, but there are none that are scheduled. But we do have a couple of streaming movies. So Netflix has rom-com Champagne Problems with Minka Kelly on Wednesday. While on Friday, I like Minka Kelly, so that to me is a plus. And they have awards contender on Netflix, also on Netflix, Train Dreams. It's one of many. Netflix has a lot of awards contenders this year. We'll see how they all do. But Train Dreams hasn't gotten a lot of attention. But it actually seems to be one of their strongest plays. Apple TV has The Family Plan 2, the sequel to the biggest movie on the streaming service to date. Although they haven't updated that since F1. Although that's not an original streaming movie. The Family Plan, the first one, is Apple TV's biggest original streaming film to date. And Good Boy goes to Shudder after a brief run in theaters. As for shows, Paramount Plus brings back their mega hit Landman tonight. This is after Yellowstone. I think this is Taylor Sheridan's new Yellowstone. I didn't watch Yellowstone, but I sure love Landman. It's a business show, and I love business. It's about the business of oil. I love Landman. I'm so excited. It returns tonight with the debut of season 2. While on Thursday, Netflix brings back A Man on the Inside, and on Friday, Ed Sheeran takes a page from Taylor Swift's playbook, albeit on a much smaller scale, with his own Netflix special. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And how do you think the holiday movie season is going to turn out for Hollywood? Is it going to be are they going to end a very difficult 2025 with a bang? Or do you think some of these movies might not hit the way Hollywood is expecting? On that note, Avatar 3 tickets go on sale tomorrow. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.